Hello, this is Betsy Waugh, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Thursday, July 2nd issue of the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. An analysis: Independence Sparked American Philanthropy, How Charitable Giving Took Shape in the Newly Created United States. This is by Amanda Moniz, Moniz, from the Smithsonian Institution, called The Conversation. John Hancock did something revolutionary 250 years ago when the Massachusetts merchants signed the Declaration of Independence, announcing to the world that 13 English colonies were freeing themselves from Great Britain and from monarchy. About a decade later, he signed up as a member of a charity that rescued drowning victims, and that endeavor was revolutionary too. As I explain in my 2016 book, from when I say my or I, this is the author speaking, From Empire to Humanity, the American Revolution transformed how Americans and also Britons engaged in giving. Many Americans turned to philanthropy after gaining independence to pursue their ideals of life, liberty, and happiness for the new nation. And while curating the Smithsonian's National Museum of American History's Giving in America exhibition, for which I, the author, collect objects telling stories about Americans volunteering, donating, and working to aid others, I'm often reminded that Americans still pursue these ideals through their everyday philanthropy. Charity in North American colonies. Hancock, who was born in Braintree, Massachusetts on January 23, 1737, grew up in a world where men like his uncle Thomas Hancock dominated charitable activity. Thomas Hancock had made a fortune in business ventures, including the slave trade and military contracting. When he died, he left an array of charitable bequests, including one used for communion silver for his church. By having Thomas Hancock's name engraved on the silver plates, the church leaders highlighted what colonial Americans knew. Leadership in philanthropy, as in society at large, was in the hands of elite white men. That uncle raised John after his father's death, educating him so he would be prepared for business and civil leadership. When colonists fell on hard times, they might be eligible for an early form of government benefits known as poor relief, quote unquote. They could also turn to their churches, to one another, or to a small number of ethnic aid societies, such as Boston's Scots Society, for support. In the mid-1700s, Americans founded a number of new welfare and educational institutions, including colleges and charity schools. Benjamin Franklin, a leading philanthropic innovator, helped establish the Pennsylvania Hospital with mixed public and private funding. That funding model would later become common for charitable institutions. The Revolutionary War interrupted these developments. After independence was won in 1783, the number of charitable organizations and institutions would soon soar. Humane societies to protect people. U.S. charitable institutions began to rapidly change in the 1780s as Americans sought to reform society by establishing organizations to support people in need. One of those groups was the charity dedicated to rescuing drowning people and aiding shipwrecked sailors that John Hancock joined along with Paul Revere. It was known as the Humane Society of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, and like other similar groups, offered rewards or honors to motivate people to undertake the risky work of saving people from watery graves. Americans in several cities, along with their peers in the British Isles, the Caribbean, and Europe, worked together by publicizing resuscitation techniques, sharing information on effective methods, and offering each other moral support. Humane, quote unquote humane, was a popular word in the names of charities dedicated to an array of causes in this era, long before it became associated with the protection of animal welfare. Philanthropy's meaning at the time. Throughout the 1700s and much of the 1800s, the word philanthropy referred to a sentiment the love of humanity. That reflected the word's origins. It's derived from the Greek words for love, philos, and anthropos, or man. For Americans of the founding generation, philanthropy meant, above all else, aiding strangers, people outside their local religious or ethnic community. Spurred by African Americans' advocacy, some prominent white Americans, such as Alexander Hamilton, joined anti-slavery societies, while northern states gradually began passing anti-slavery laws. Making maritime travel safer for people of all backgrounds and nationalities was another way to uphold this value of universal benevolence. Humane Society's rescuers and rescued people alike included African Americans and foreign mariners, including some from Asia and the Spanish Empire. African Americans received awards from anti-drowning groups using the same criteria applied to white people. In 1794, one of the highest honors went to Dolphin Garler, a black man in Plymouth, Massachusetts, who had risked his life to rescue a young boy from drowning. Many Americans at this time saw benevolence as a criteria for citizenship. By lauding Garler, the leaders of the Massachusetts Humane Society were challenging other white Americans to recognize black Americans' humanity. Like humane societies, other charities innovated by giving aid across ethnic or denominational lines as Americans built bonds in the new nation. Among them was New York Hospital, which had quote-unquote charity to all as its motto and had a diverse patient population. Many were British, Irish, and German, with small numbers of people, probably mariners, from places like Portugal and South Asia. The hospital also treated African Americans in segregated wards. Another new charity embracing this new, more universal approach was the Society for the Relief of Poor Widows with Small Children, established in New York City in 1797. It supported poor widows with small children and helped the widows find jobs. While the organization excluded African American women, it innovated by aiding white women without regard to their ethnic or religious background. New leaders with new causes. The Widows' Society, as it was known, was notable for another reason. It was one of the first charities founded and led by women in the new United States. Before the late 1780s, women made charitable donations to institutions run by men and gave personal alms, but women didn't lead organizations. In New York, Scottish immigrant Isabella Graham and other women challenged traditional roles by founding the Widows' Society in 1797. That they came together from various Protestant backgrounds was notable at the time. Within a few years, Eliza Hamilton, Alexander Hamilton's wife, would join and help lead the Orphan Asylum Society of the city of New York, which grew out of the Widow Society. And yes, that's the orphanage Eliza Hamilton sings about in Hamilton, Lin-Manuel Miranda's award-winning musical. Black Americans likewise broke ground by creating charities and independent churches in the founding era. Black men like Richard Allen and Absalom Jones, for example, created the Free African Society, a mutual aid organization in 1787 in Philadelphia. In addition to supporting members of the Black community at times of need, the Free African Society led to the creation of independent Black churches as African Americans struggled for inclusion. Revolutionizing charity management. Founding charities was one thing, and running them was another. Americans applied managerial skills acquired from operating businesses, churches, and households to caring for people in distress. They also became pros at the business of fundraising, cultivating donors, hosting fundraising events, and publishing annual reports, including names of donors. In short, Americans developed the critical skills to make philanthropy work. Philadelphia doctor and signer of the Declaration of Independence, Benjamin Rush, was one of the most skilled philanthropic communicators. As he undertook one humanitarian endeavor after another, Rush collaborated with philanthropic leaders like Isabella Graham and Richard Allen. Like others of his generation, Rush devoted himself to reforming the country and world, medical philanthropy, education, anti-slavery, prison reform. He was engaged in all of them. The Humane Society of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts's provision made for shipwrecked mariners is also highly estimable in the view of every philanthropic mind. George Washington said in 1788, quote, "These works of charity and goodwill towards men presage an era of still farther improvements," unquote. This goodwill could go global. Cooperating across the Atlantic in this cause and others helped Americans and Britons reaffirm and reimagine their bonds. Bedrock of the American experiment. It was only when rich men like steel magnate Andrew Carnegie and oil baron John D. Rockefeller began to make massive donations and set up their own foundations in the late 1800s and early 1900s that the word philanthropy would come to be associated with giving on a massive scale. As Americans celebrate the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I, the author, believe it's worth remembering that the founding generation embraced civic engagement, organizational innovation, and generosity as essential pillars in the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. For that generation, philanthropy, the love of humanity, was the bedrock of the American experiment in Republican government. This article comes from The Conversation, which is an independent and nonprofit source of news, analysis, and commentary from academic experts. The Conversation is wholly responsible for the content. Woman held on charge of funding terrorism. A Rondequoit resident accused of sending $30,000 to Gaza fighter, by Victoria E. Friel, New York Connect Team USA Today Network. An Rondequoit woman is accused of sending more than $30,000 in cryptocurrency to a person federal prosecutors say claimed to be a fighter with Palestine Islamic Jihad in Gaza. Catherine Beth Washburn, 37, has been charged with attempting to provide material support to a designated foreign terrorist organization, the U.S. Department of Justice announced Tuesday. According to a criminal complaint, Washburn is alleged to be a leader of the Direct Action Movement for Palestinian Liberation, or DAMPL, an extremist group formed after the October 7, 2023 Hamas attack on Israel. Federal prosecutors said the group rejects peaceful protest and instead promotes, quote-unquote, direct action, including acts of sabotage and property destruction in support of the Palestinian cause and against entities it associates with Israel. Prosecutors' messages showed support for violence. U.S. Attorney Michael D. Giacomo for the Western District of New York said Washburn was motivated by what he described as hatred of Israel and Jewish people. Quote, fueled by her self-described hate of Israel and Jewish people, unquote, Washburn is accused of providing financial support to terrorist organizations that use violence to further their agendas, including Palestine Islamic Jihad, D. Giacomo said in a statement. According to prosecutors, the FBI executed search warrants in February and March and recovered electronic messages between Washburn and a person who identified as a Palestine Islamic Jihad fighter in Gaza and claimed to have participated in attacks against Israel. The criminal complaint alleges the messages included discussions about attacks on Israel, weapons, and ammunition. Prosecutors also allege Washburn praised the violence, expressed a desire to join the fight, made anti-Semitic statements, and wrote that she, quote, wished every day were October 7th, unquote. Federal prosecutors allege Washburn made about 80 cryptocurrency transfers totaling $30,116 to the individual. Quote, providing financial support to a designated foreign terrorist organization is a serious federal crime that directly fuels violence and puts innocent lives at risk, unquote, Alan D. Davis II, special agent in charge of the FBI Buffalo field office, said in a statement, quote, as alleged, Washburn repeatedly voiced support for violence against Israeli civilians and attempted to provide material support to the Palestinian Islamic Jihad by sending cryptocurrency to an individual who claimed to participate in its attacks, unquote, said Assistant Attorney General for National Security John A. Eisenberg. Quote, those who aid foreign terrorist groups will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law, unquote. Washburn appeared in federal court Tuesday, June 30th, and was ordered detained, according to the U.S. Attorney's Office. U.S. Attorney Brett A. Harvey is prosecuting the case. If convicted, Washburn faces up to 20 years in federal prison and a fine of up to $250,000. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Rochester man investigated by ICE. ICE agents seek Rochester man over email to agency chief, by Kayla Kane. A quote from this man is, his name is David Strever, and his quote is, we now have a whole new paramilitary police force that's apparently empowered to track private citizens, unquote. This is, as I said, by Kayla Kane from the Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. Federal immigration agents showed up unannounced to David Strever's Rochester home recently with a warning. An email he wrote the agency's former acting director months ago could be considered a threat, they said, a serious federal offense. Incensed by the fatal shootings of two protesters during ICE raids in Minneapolis this winter, Strever had drafted a 3-paragraph email to Todd Lyons in January. He compared the then acting director to a sinister Nazi German official and warned Lyons would be consumed with shame and guilt once he confronted his role in Trump's immigration enforcement regime. Now, 5 months later, ICE wanted to talk to Strever, but they didn't say why, and the Rochester man wasn't home when they came by June 23rd. He was some 4,000 miles away in an idyllic amusement park in Finland with his 7-year-old daughter, his wife explained to the ICE agents on their doorstep. He would give them a call when he returned. Their efforts to locate Strever did not stop there, however. 2 days later, ICE tracked the man and his daughter to a New York City hotel room hours after they landed at JFK International Airport. A receptionist at the hotel blocked the encounter, but passed along a business card from the ICE agent. A spokesperson for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security did not answer questions about how they located Strever or what agents were sent to do, saying only that, quote, ICE investigates all credible threats toward its employees and officers, including threats to the ICE director, unquote. The ICE crackdown on free speech lands in Rochester. The situation has left Strever on edge. A Syracuse.com story captured a similar interaction between ICE agents and a poll worker the same day the federal government went looking for him, and national civil liberties organizations are working to uncover just how much information ICE is collecting on citizens who vocalize their dissent. Quote, we now have a whole new paramilitary police force that's apparently empowered to track private citizens and go after them with, I assume they haven't gotten a warrant, unquote, Strever said, quote, as far as I know, no court or judge has reviewed this. That's the part that scares me. I know I've done nothing wrong. I know I haven't broken the law. I know I'm not a violent or dangerous person, unquote. A warning notice left with Strever's wife said his email, quote unquote, may have violated Title 18 of the U.S. Code, which makes it unlawful to threaten or assault a federal official with the intent to impede, intimidate, or interfere with their work. His name was written on top of the form letter in blue ballpoint ink. There was a space for him to sign, acknowledging the notice. He has not. Streever said he has not heard from ICE since an agent showed up to his hotel June 25th. Lawyers and free speech advocates have advised him not to contact the agency directly. He is concerned, however, whether the federal government was able to track his whereabouts using cell phone surveillance. He called his January email to Lyons a moral condemnation of violent ICE raids in Minneapolis. He didn't think the letter would necessarily have impact, but he wanted it to be part of the public record of this moment. The visits from ICE, he said, which he viewed as an intimidation tactic, have in turn shown him his efforts weren't futile. I wanted to have some public statement that wasn't a tweet or a Facebook post or whatever that said, I know that this is wrong and I spoke up about it, unquote, Streever said, quote, it just makes me think our voices really carry. We have a lot of power, unquote. The reporter Kayla Kane covers community safety for the Democrat Chronicle with a focus on immigration, police accountability, government surveillance, and how people are impacted by violence. Follow her on Instagram at @ByKaylaKane. Get in touch at KCANNE@Gannett.com. Why helicopters were dropping hundreds of gallons of water in Monroe County by Ryan Miller, Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. Helicopters circled over Monroe County with hundreds of gallons of water suspended beneath them in a giant orange bucket. They weren't responding to a wildfire, they were preparing for one. New York Forest Rangers and New York State Police aviation crews partnered in the town of Greece on June 6th to practice helicopter bucket drops, readying pilots and forest ranger crew chiefs for the aerial firefighting missions used to battle wildfires across New York, according to the State Department of Environmental Conservation. The collapsible Bambi buckets used during the training can hold between 240 and 660 gallons of water, depending on the helicopter. During a wildfire, the buckets are filled from nearby lakes, ponds, or reservoirs before pilots make repeated drops over fires burning in places where fire engines can't easily reach. 3 Forest Ranger crew chiefs worked inside state police helicopters during the training, while other rangers on the ground directed pilots to simulated targets, helping crews practice the precision needed during an actual emergency. The exercises helped ensure both forest rangers and state police aviation crews are prepared before wildfire season intensifies. Quote, forest rangers and NYSP aviation have an invaluable relationship combining training and experience to provide unique and critical services in time of crisis, whether it be for search and rescue or wildland firefighting, unquote, the DEC said. While many New Yorkers know forest rangers for rescuing lost hikers and responding to wilderness emergencies, they also serve as the state's wildland firefighters. According to the DEC, forest rangers responded to 202 wildfires that burned 840 acres across New York in 2025. Missing canoeist found dead after overnight search in western New York by Ryan Miller, Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. Dive teams recovered the body of a missing canoeist nearly 24 hours after a search began when a canoe overturned on Java Lake in Wyoming County. Robert D. Fuller, 46, of Java Lake, was pronounced dead at the scene June 20th after sonar technology located an object underwater around 6 p.m., according to the Wyoming County Sheriff's Office. Authorities said current evidence suggests the death was an accidental drowning. The search began about 6:50 p.m. on June 19th when Wyoming County's 9/11 Center received a report that a canoe had capsized on Java Lake in the town of Java. 2 people were thrown into the water. One made it safely to shore, but Fuller, who the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation said had limited swimming ability, did not. Forest rangers responded later that night at the request of Wyoming County Sheriff's Office. New York State Police Aviation and Mercy Flight searched from the air but were unable to locate Fuller before nightfall. The search resumed the following morning with Forest Rangers, New York State Police, Livingston County Sheriff's Office dive teams, Niagara County Search and Rescue, Alden, Arcade, and North Java Fire Departments, the Wyoming County Office of Emergency Management, and Amigo Search and Rescue dogs. How to lower your electric bill during New York heat. New York Connect Team, USA Today Network. As New York braces for several days of dangerous heat, utilities companies are reminding customers that higher air conditioning use can also mean higher electric bills. New York State Electric and Gas and Rochester Gas and Electric on Monday encouraged customers to use free energy tracking tools and financial assistance programs as temperature and heat index values are expected to climb into the triple digits across much of the state through Friday. The New York SEG and RG&E said customers can sign up for free text or email usage alerts to monitor electricity use and receive notifications when consumption spikes or exceeds a monthly threshold. Customers can also use utilities' free Energy Manager tool to track electricity use by the hour if they have a smart meter, or by the month if they do not. Quote, with more time spent at home during summer breaks and vacations, it's common to see higher energy use from air conditioners, fans, and pool pumps, unquote, NYSEG and RG&E's CEO Patricia Nelson said in a statement. Quote, we want customers to know there are simple ways to stay in control of their bills, unquote. Ways to lower cooling costs. The utilities recommend several ways to reduce electricity use during the summer. Raise the thermostat by 7 to 10 degrees for about 8 hours a day when possible to reduce cooling costs. Use ceiling fans to improve comfort but turn them off when rooms are empty. Keep blinds and curtains closed during the hottest part of the day. Avoid using ovens, dryers, and dishwashers during peak afternoon heat. Seal air leaks around windows and doors. Replace or clean air conditioning filters regularly. Use a programmable or smart thermostat to automatically adjust temperatures. Bill assistance is available. Customers struggling with higher summer electric bills may qualify for assistance programs including budget billing, which spreads energy costs evenly throughout the year to reduce seasonal bill spikes. The Enhanced Energy Affordability Program, or EEAP, which offers monthly bill discounts to qualifying moderate-income households. Customers can also contact NYSEG or RG&E customer service representatives to discuss payment plans and other assistance options. The reminders come as the National Weather Service warns that much of New York could see heat index values above 100 degrees, with some areas approaching 110 degrees during the state's first widespread heat wave of the summer. How to stay safe during a heat wave. Here are some tips by Victoria E. Friel, New York Connect Team, USA Today Network. Here are some tips from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention on how to cope with predicted insufferable heat coming to New York. Drink plenty of water and beverages with electrolytes and avoid alcohol. Wear lightweight, loose-fitting, light-colored clothing. Wear sunscreen, SPF 15 or higher. Plan outdoor activities carefully, limiting your time outside to when it's coolest, like the morning or evening hours, and rest in shaded areas. Stay inside in air conditioning as much as possible during peak heat. If you don't have it at home, go to a public library, community center, or shopping mall for respite. And finally, never leave children or pets in a parked car, even with the windows cracked. Temperatures will quickly rise inside a parked vehicle, even with the windows left partly open. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Obituaries. Robert Feder, Feder, aged 73. Mark Brian Corral, Koral, age 78, in Rochester, New York, passed on June 13th. Arrangements are through the Thomas Funeral Chapels. Service time is July 3rd at 2 p.m. Service location is at the Thomas Funeral Chapels. Margaret, nicknamed Betty, Ludwig, aged 88, in Rochester, New York, passed on June 19th. Arrangements are through the Jennings, Knowlton, and Maddie Funeral Home. And Drogoberto, it's spelled Drogoberto, that's the first name. Last name Torres Perez, Torres-Perez, aged 67. How to keep your pet safe during extreme heat, from the New York Connect Team USA Today Network. High heat and humidity can cause heat-related illnesses, particularly among children, older adults, and people with pre-existing conditions. Residents are urged to stay in air-conditioned spaces, avoid prolonged outdoor activity, stay hydrated, and never leave children or pets in vehicles. How to keep pets safe in heat. Signs of heat stroke in pets: rapid or loud breathing, extreme thirst or heavy drooling, vomiting or disorientation, bright red gums or tongue, lethargy or weakness, thick saliva, or rapid heartbeat. If you suspect heat stroke, move your pet to a cool area immediately and seek veterinary help. Cool them down using water, fans, or by submerging them in lukewarm but not ice-cold water. Dehydration symptoms in pets include dry gums, sunken eyes, lethargy, and reduced skin elasticity. Pet cooling essentials are battery-operated fans, cooling vests and pads, spray bottle with cool water, focus on their underside and paw pads, rubbing alcohol for paws and ears, this evaporates faster than water, electrolyte solution that is unflavored for hydration, ice cubes or bone broth to encourage drinking. Most important, use a rectal thermometer to monitor for fever. Anything above 102.5 degrees Fahrenheit is dangerous. Additional tips: avoid walking dogs on hot asphalt. Stick to grass, early mornings or evenings. Never shave your pet. Fur acts as insulation. Light trimming is okay. Use pet-safe sunscreen, screen on pink-nosed or white-haired animals, and schedule a vet checkup before peak summer. Confirm vaccinations and test for heartworm. Local leaders celebrate citizenship ruling, by Kayla Kane and Kyria Weaver, Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. The Supreme Court on June 30th rejected President Donald Trump's attempt to redefine who is an American, striking down the limits on birthright citizenship that were a centerpiece of his hardline approach to immigration. In a 6-3 ruling, the court found that children born in the United States to parents who are unlawfully or temporarily in the country are citizens under the 14th Amendment. Rochester area lawmakers and advocacy groups celebrated the decision June 30th. Rochester City Council President Miguel Melendez called the ruling a, quote, victory for both our immigrant communities and for the constitutional soul of our country. It is a shame we even had to have this conversation, unquote, he said in a statement. Quote, the objective seems to be less about what the Constitution clearly states and more about bullying people and trying to intimidate folks through threats to take away their citizenship, unquote. New York reacts to birthright citizenship decision. Quote, citizenship then and now was the right to have rights, to freely participate in our political community, unquote, Chief Justice John Roberts wrote in the majority decision, quote, the framers of the 14th Amendment extended that promise to, quote, every freeborn person in this land, unquote, and we keep that promise today, unquote. Donna Lieberman, executive director of the New York Civil Liberties Union, said the ruling upholds equal protections for all individuals born in the United States, ensuring there are no, quote unquote, permanent underclasses in America. Quote, in a resounding victory for immigrant families across the country, today the Supreme Court defended the core American promise that the Constitution, not the president, decides who is born an American, unquote, Lieberman said in a statement. Quote, today's decision means everything for the communities we represent. The mother who came to the U.S. petrified for her future child's safety, the father whose heart raced every time he thought about his baby's future, wondering if they'd be able to pursue an education one day, the guardian who wasn't sure if their offspring would ever be able to speak freely, unquote. New York Governor Kathy Hochul, the granddaughter of Irish immigrants, called the Trump administration's earlier executive order a quote-unquote cruel attack. Quote, for generations, immigrants have come to New York in search of freedom and opportunity, helping build the strongest, most vibrant state in the nation, she said. The Statue of Liberty stands proudly in our harbor, and New York will always stand with those seeking the promise of America, unquote. U.S. Senator Kirsten Gillibrand said the ruling was, quote, a victory for the rule of law, for the 14th Amendment, and for hundreds of thousands of families across New York and this country, unquote. Quote, this is a sound rejection of this administration's lawless overreach, and it should serve as a reminder that our system of checks and balances still holds, Gillibrand said in a statement, but the fight to protect immigrant families and the rule of law is far from over. I will keep fighting in the Senate and alongside New Yorkers to defend the Constitution and the values that make this country worth believing in, unquote. The article includes reporting by USA Today. 10 Best Fireworks Shows in New York by the New York Connect Team, USA Today Network. New York is expected to go big for Independence Day in 2026, with fireworks displays planned across the state tied to America's 250th anniversary. From New York City's largest show to lakefront celebrations in the Finger Lakes, here are 10 of the top fireworks events. The Macy's 4th of July fireworks in New York City on July 4th, typically from 8 to 10 p.m. During the broadcast window, the exact launch time is not announced. The nation's largest Independence Day fireworks show returns for a milestone celebration, watchable on TV. The Jones Beach fireworks on Long Island, also on July 4th around 9:30 p.m. That's a beachfront display with live entertainment. Walkway over the Hudson fireworks from Poughkeepsie on July 4th from 9 to 9:30. Fireworks are launched over the Hudson River with viewing from the elevated walkway. Niagara Falls fireworks at Niagara Falls, multiple nights around July 4th. Around 10 p.m., fireworks light up the falls from multiple viewing areas. Sail the 4th 250 New York Harbor events at New York City. The dates are from July 3rd to the 8th. The fireworks are not yet scheduled, and this is part of a larger America 250 celebration featuring ships, events, and harbor programming. The Rochester Downtown Fireworks at the Genesee River on July 4th around 10 p.m., the city's signature show with viewing from downtown bridges and riverfront areas. The Buffalo Independence Eve fireworks from Sahlen Field on July 3rd after the game or concert time is not listed, a downtown celebration tied to baseball and live entertainment. In Canandaigua, the CMAC fireworks for the Finger Lakes at July 4th, on July 4th at dusk. Lakefront fireworks are paired with concerts and festival events. The Canisius Lake Ring of Fire in Livingston County, very famous around here. The date is July 3rd, about 10 p.m. This is a traditional event featuring flares around the lake, followed by fireworks. The Irondequoit 4th of July celebration in Monroe County. Dates are July 3rd to the 4th. Time around 9:30 p.m. This is a multi-day celebration culminating, must be on the 4th, in a large fireworks display. In New York, you can watch fireworks on New York City, Long Island, in Hudson Valley, Western New York, Finger Lakes, as I just read. What to know before you go. Most fireworks shows begin between 9 and 10 p.m., depending on sunset. Many celebrations run July 3rd to the 5th, not July 4th. Crowds are, as you might expect, expected to be larger in 2026. Your Guide to the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra Outdoor Concerts this July by Laura Nichols, Rochester Democrat Chronicle, USA Today Network. The Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra will begin a jam-packed July with the first of many outdoor concerts, Red, White, and Boom at Constellation Brands Marvin Sands Performing Arts Center. Music director Maestro Andre Stelfs will lead the concert at 8 p.m. Thursday, July 2nd at 3355 Marvin Sands Drive, Hopewell, Ontario County. The RPO will perform favorite American songs, including Sousa tunes and anthems, followed by a big fireworks display, weather permitting. Tickets are $10 for adults, $7 for children. A family four-pack consists of 4 tickets for $30, with additional tickets costing $7.50. They can be purchased online at Ticketmaster.com or in person at the CMAC box office, 3389 Marvin Sands Drive, during hours 9 to 4 p.m. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and starting at noon the day of the show. The premium lot parking off Lakeshore Drive costs $30 and is available only in advance via Ticketmaster. General lot parking costs $10, cash only, off State Route 364, which is East Lake Road, and County Road 18. The limo lot parking costs $20. Other outdoor events are planned. Many of them are free. At most, people are encouraged to bring lawn chairs or blankets. They are. Now, there's a bunch of them, many, many, many. I'm just going to read the basic information, and then please look it up online to find out more on your own. Here they are. The RPO at the Red Wings, Friday, July 3rd, starting at 6:05 p.m., followed by at 8:30 the RPO concert. They're at the RPO's at Parrington Center Park Amphitheater, 6 p.m. on Sunday, July 5th. City of Rochester Park Series, Susan B. Anthony Square Park at 6:30 p.m. July 7th. That's the Bob Snyder Trio playing as part of the City Park Series. Admission is free. RPO SUNY Brockport at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, July 7th. RPO is at Ontario Beach at 7:30 p.m. Wednesday, July 8th. RPO Under the Stars is at 6 p.m. Friday, July 10th. RPO at Genesee Country Village and Museum is at 7 p.m. Saturday, July 11th. The City of Rochester Park Series Maplewood Rose Garden is at 6:30 July 14th with a string quartet performing at that park. RPO Bristol Mountain is at 5:30 p.m. on July 16th. This is a kid-friendly pre-concert activities until 7:15 p.m. Food trucks are available. The concert begins at 7:30 p.m. And you should contact the RPO about that. RPO at SUNY Geneseo at 8:30 p.m. Saturday, July 18th. The concert ends with fireworks. The cost is $13 for adults, $8 for children. City of Rochester Park Series at Barrington Street Park at 6:30 p.m. Tuesday, July 21st. This will be a jazz trio performing at the corner of Barrington Street and Park Avenue. RPO will be at Temple Brith Kodesh at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, July 21st. That's at 2131 Elmwood Avenue in Brighton. RPO Outdoors at Inlet at 7:30 p.m. Friday, July 24th. The outdoor series concludes in the Adirondacks at 3 p.m. at Arrowhead Park in Inlet, Hamilton County. A free instrument petting zoo will begin under a tent. From 4 to 7, there will be a fundraising cocktail party under a large tent overlooking Fourth Lake on the grounds of Eagle Bay Village. Tickets cost $150 per person and include preferred seating for the concert. There's a shuttle provided. General admission is $39.19, $28.52 for people 19 and younger. Tickets are available on Eventbrite, and they can be sent by mail up until July 13th. After that, they'll be at will call. The City of Rochester Park Series, International Plaza, 6:30 p.m. on Tuesday, July 28th. The Marimba Band will play at International Plaza, 842 North Clinton Avenue. This is free. And besides the outdoor concerts, the RPO will perform with an amplified rock band at 7:30 p.m. July 17th at Kodak Center. When Born's The Music of Led Zeppelin will include 18 classics. And you should contact the Kodak Center box office or online at Ticketmaster.com. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Democrat Chronicle on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. GOP Rebellion Puts Congress at Standstill by Zachary Schmermel, Schmermele, from USA Today in Washington. The House of Representatives is at a standstill, unable to pass key pieces of legislation that keep Americans safe and the government's wheels turning amid a Republican rebellion. House Speaker Mike Johnson, Republican of Louisiana, abruptly recessed the chamber on June 30th. The impasse over several issues, including passing an election reform bill known as the Save America Act, which President Donald Trump has said is his top priority, forced him to cancel votes and send lawmakers home early for the July 4th holiday. The House earlier that day failed to approve a procedural measure known as a quote-unquote rule after roughly a dozen Republicans decided to sink it, effectively paralyzing GOP leaders' legislative schedule. Some were angry about Johnson's professed strategies to pass SAVE, the SAVE Act, which hardliners have said won't work. Others said they were promised a vote on a separate border security bill, which they didn't get. In the immediate aftermath, the Pentagon's annual must-pass defense policy bill was stalled, and the House lost several voting days that will be difficult to make up. The infighting is wreaking havoc within the GOP-led Congress, jeopardizing Republicans' ability to achieve more of their policy goals as the midterm elections approach. More urgently, it's continuing to stand in the way of Congress performing its basic functions on which many Americans rely. Quote, in broad terms, there are things that we need to be moving forward that we've all talked about that aren't happening, that are starting to bottleneck, unquote. Representative Chip Roy, Republican of Texas, one of the lawmakers stymieing the agenda, told USA Today. Johnson blamed the issues on the GOP's razor-thin House majority, though Republicans' ranks slightly improved June 30th when a New Jersey lawmaker finally reappeared in the Capitol after a 4-month health-related absence. Quote, this is life with a small margin, the speaker told reporters before canceling votes. We'll work through it, unquote. Democrats did little to hide their frustration with what House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, Democrat of New York, called, quote, Republican dysfunction, unquote. Quote, what on earth are we doing here, unquote, Representative Jim McGovern, Democrat of Massachusetts, said in a floor speech. Quote, every week wondering if someone's going to throw a fit, if Donald Trump is going to post something crazy and blow everything up, if Mike Johnson is going to bring something to the floor when he doesn't have the votes, unquote. Among other election changes, the Save American Act would require documentary proof of citizenship, such as a birth certificate or a passport, and a photo ID to vote. Republican Anna Paulina Luna, Republican of Florida, one of the lawmakers digging in over it, defended herself on the steps of the Capitol. Even as Trump, fresh off a meeting with Johnson last week, encouraged Republicans like her to quote unquote stop grandstanding over his demand to pass the voting restrictions bill, she and other hardliners haven't let up. Quote, "The only thing that I can do is use my vote," Luna said. "Why not try to do everything we can possibly do?" Unquote. Reuters was also contributing to that article. DOJ to probe quote-unquote birth tourism schemes by Bart Jansen, USA Today in Washington. The Justice Department directed prosecutors to investigate potential quote-unquote birth tourism schemes after the Supreme Court overturned President Donald Trump's attempt to restrict the citizenship of children born to tourists. Colin McDonald, the Assistant Attorney General for Fraud Enforcement, said in a memo that people come into the country under quote-unquote false pretenses to give birth and secure citizenship for their child could be criminally charged under laws barring visa fraud, money laundering, identity theft, and wire fraud. Quote, "The criminal laws of the United States already prohibit conduct inherent to so many of these so-called birth tourism schemes," McDonald said. For example, many such schemes start with a false visa application with lies about the purpose of or duration of one's travel to the United States, unquote. The move is one way the Trump administration responded to the court's decision in response to losing one of his top priorities. Trump signed an executive order the first day of his second term to restrict citizenship, and he became the first sitting president to attend a Supreme Court argument when the justices heard the case this spring. Trump urged Congress to adopt his restrictions in legislation after Justice Brett Kavanaugh wrote an opinion saying the 14th Amendment would allow it. Trump said legislation would avoid the higher bar required to amend the Constitution again. But Chief Justice John Roberts wrote for a 5-4 majority that the amendment provided citizenship for everyone born in the country. The number of criminal cases of alleged birth tourism is relatively small, as is the number of children born to short-term visitors. McDonald cited 3 cases to illustrate the gravity of these charges. In 2024, a husband-wife team of Michael W-E-I, his next part, Y-U-E-H, last part of his name, L-I-U, and Jing Dong was convicted and each sentenced to 41 months in prison. They were accused of running a business called, quote, USA Happy Baby, unquote, that charged Chinese clients tens of thousands of dollars to help give birth in the United States. In 2022, Ibrahim Aksakal was convicted and sentenced to 24 months in prison for conspiring to health care and wire fraud. Aksakal was accused of advertising a birth tourism scheme on Turkish social media pages. He was ordered to pay $1 million in restitution and forfeit nearly $400,000. In 2020, Chow Edwin Chen, C-H-E-N, was convicted and sentenced to 37 months in prison for operating a business called, quote, You Win USA, unquote, with a 100-person team in China and the United States. The business served more than 500 customers, prosecutors said. The number of babies born to birth tours in the United States is highly disputed because the government does not track the figures. Estimates from researchers have varied from as high as 39,000 annually to as low as 2,000. But a group of 140 university professors told the Supreme Court in a written argument that birth tourism, quote, accounts for an infinitesimal proportion of children, unquote, given the 3.6 million births in the United States each year. Trump reports $1.4 billion with a B in crypto venture income by Tao Nguyen, Tguyen, USA Today. President Donald Trump reported more than $1.4 billion in income tied to his family's cryptocurrency ventures in 2025, making digital assets the largest driver of his earnings, according to an annual financial disclosure released on June 30th. The 927-page report, released by the U.S. Office of Government Ethics, provides the most detailed look yet at Trump's finances during his first year back in the White House. His crypto-related income dwarfed earnings reported by many of his traditional businesses and marked a sharp increase from past disclosures. The filing also confirmed Trump remains the beneficiary of the assets in the trust that ultimately receives the income. The White House previously said the president's business interests are overseen by his children. On July 1st at Joint Base Andrews, Trump told reporters he doesn't get involved in the financial management of his business interests. In his disclosure for 2024, Trump reported more than $600 million in income from cryptocurrencies, golf properties, licensing, and other ventures. The latest filing showed that his companies received nearly $800 million from World Liberty Financial, a crypto company Trump co-founded with his sons, including more than $520 million from token sales and over $250 million from the sale of interest in the business. Income from World Liberty token sales alone increased more than ninefold from a year earlier, when Trump reported $57.35 million from the venture. The president also reported another $635 million from sales of his quote-unquote meme coins. Reuters estimated the Trump family has generated at least $2.3 billion from crypto-related projects since Trump's return to the White House in 2025. The annual filing comes as the Trump administration has pursued policies viewed as favorable to the cryptocurrency industry, including advancing stablecoin regulations and scaling back some enforcement activity by federal regulators. Quote, "You know why I'm profiting? Because the stock market's going up. Everybody's profiting," unquote, Trump said July 1st. Revenue at Mar-a-Lago in Palm Beach, Florida rose to $77 million from roughly $50 million in the 2024, the filing shows. Revenue at Trump's golf club in West Palm Beach increased 27%. Trump's income from his real estate interests, the business in which he made his name, had less spectacular growth, Reuters reported. The president reported income from about a dozen major commercial real estate ventures, most of them stakes in properties he developed or acquired decades ago. Beyond crypto and hospitality operations, Trump reported more than $80 million in income from settlements with several media companies. The filing also showed $52 million in income from licensing arrangements that allow overseas developers to use the Trump name on real estate projects. Reuters said that those earnings were driven largely by partnerships in the Middle East. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from the Thursday, July 2nd issue of the Democrat Chronicle. Your reader has been Betsy Waugh. Thank you for listening.